Hey, this is Elon from Egard Watch Company. I know we're a watch and hat company, but today I want to talk about something completely different, which is firearms. I'm very passionate about firearms, and there's a debate that a lot of people have over this, or at least arguments over it, which is how effective is a 22 as a self-defense round, and how does it stack up against a 9mm? So I want to jump right in. I want to give my views on why I think 22s, just to give it away in full transparency starting off. I'm on the side of 22s being good as an everyday carry, being effective, and even being effective for home defense. And I'll explain why. I'll touch on both sides of the subject, and I'll give my views on why I personally recommend 22s to a lot of people. Not everyone, but to a lot of people. So I have two firearms here. One is a 9mm, one is a 22. I just want to put them out there so you guys could see. And I'll explain why. I'm just going to clear the guns quick so you can see. This gun is clear. There's nothing inside. Check manually. Magazine. And then we have the Ruger Mark IV, which is a 22. So the Springfield Elite Armory is one of my favorites. The Ruger Mark IV is one of my favorite firearms. Has a weird slide thing here. It's not really like a regular gun, but you can see inside. You can still check. And so these two guns are guns I go to the range a lot with. And the reason I'm using them as an example here is because I could just tell you these are both fantastic firearms in their respective caliber, like 9mm, 22, and how they feel different and why I would recommend a 22 for a lot of people over the 9. So I used to teach self-defense, close quarter combat. One of the most important things about close quarter combat is dealing with your adrenaline, your stress response. Now, the reason this is relevant is because a 22 and a 9mm are very different in terms of how easy they are to use, how easy they are to hit a target. Even if you're training with the gun in a range all the time, you're not training in a high stress situation where someone's actually trying to kill you, where you're actually having to make that split decision to kill a person. And so the more you can alleviate complex motor functions, the more you can alleviate having to be accurate in terms of the ease of use of the firearm, the more effective it will be in that situation. The more you can stay on target. Now, I use both of these in the range all the time. Like I said, I use the Ruger all the time. I use the 9mm. I'm a pretty good shot. But the difference between my ability to quickly, accurately shoot the target with the 22, even as someone who's in the range all the time, compared to the 9, is magnitudes. I can pull this gun out. It has no recoil. I'm just pew, pew, pew. It's like shooting an airsoft gun and just hitting the same hole. You're going to be able to really stay on target and accurately shoot them no matter how high your stress response is. With the 9, it takes me time. I mean, I'm not just pulling it out and going boom, 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 boom. I can't do that with a 9. A lot of people can't do that with a 9, which is why I say it's important to know what kind of shooter you are. If you're always using your 9 and you're able to just go to the range every day and be like boom, 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 and just rapidly shoot it and be on target and then even increase pressures on yourself. Like there's a Nexus lane, it's called the Nexus lanes. They project onto a screen and then there's things coming at you. So you have a little bit of a stress response like zombies or the targets are moving and you have to shoot. That's a level 1 indicator of if you could start handling stress. When someone's really trying to kill you and your adrenaline is dumping and your hands are shaking because you get real shaky when your adrenaline kicks off, it's a much safer bet, even for myself as someone who goes to the range quite often, that I would rather have this in that situation than this. So again, the number one reason I would choose a 22 as an everyday carry, especially if you're a smaller person, especially if you're not using your gun as often over a 9, is because it is way easier to shoot. It's like shooting an airsoft gun. It's a lot more fun. You'll also have more time in the range with it. Number 2. So one of the number one things that matters when you're training self-defense, when you're trying to use a firearm, is repetition. And 22 rounds are much, much, much cheaper, especially now when ammo is so expensive. You could burn through 500 rounds of 9mm. That's cost you a hell of a lot of money. You could do the same for a quarter of the price with 22. You're going to get more shots in with your 22. You're going to feel more comfortable shooting it because you're going to, unless you're very, very wealthy, and it's also a round that is just typically available more even when there's shortages. 22 is just always there. It's a reliable round to just get. So there's an interesting study done by Buckeye Firearms where they compiled data over 10 years. At least that's where it's published, the study.
and it looks at the stopping power of different calibers. So you have 22 and you have 9mm Luger. I put them up on the screen here, and we'll go over each thing and just look at a comparison. So over 10 years, he got the data of 154 people shot by a 22 and 456 people shot by a 9, which is kind of irrelevant. They're both a big enough pool to kind of get an idea of how effective the round is. And number of hits, 213 versus 1,121. So again, when looking at the amount of shots, that seems to be consistent. This is the important factor here. So the percentage of hits that were fatal within that group for 22, which people say is less fatal typically, was 34%. So 1 out of 3 people shot, 1 out of 3 of those hits was fatal, versus the 9mm, which had 24%. So that's a 33% increase in fatality per shot with the 22 over the 9. It's kind of counter to what everyone would expect when taking into account everything I talked about, like accuracy, no recoil, how fast you can get more rounds off. It makes a lot of sense. The average number of rounds until incapacitation was 1.38 with a 22. And this guy got this data from police officers, from people who were actually in gunfights, everything. You can go on the website. I'll post the link below. Versus the average number of rounds until incapacitation with a 9, 2.45. That's almost double. So it took 1.3 rounds to incapacitate a person with a 22 versus 2.4 with a 9. So far, 22s in real world data are more fatal, and it takes less rounds to incapacitate the person. Percentage of people who were not incapacitated, and this is a very important thing, was significantly higher in the 22 than in the 9. So that's the drawback. Meaning that if you didn't incapacitate the person and you didn't kill the person, chances are that there was a higher chance of them not being incapacitated even with more rounds when it was a 22 than a 9mm. One shot stop, which means it took one shot to stop the person, almost identical. 31 on a 22 versus 34 on a 9. So far, the whole concept of stopping power here is not really proven in these numbers. Accuracy, head and torso hits, 76%. Very similar for the 9mm. Again, we're even here. But then actually incapacitated by one shot, torso or head, was 60% for the 22 versus 47%. Again, a massive disparity for the 9, meaning that 22 outperformed when it comes to being a deadly shot and even being a effective incapacitating shot when only one hit, arguably, again, because of accuracy, than the 9mm. So this is based on actual data. This is not something that is as negotiable, I guess, as every other point I made. So this, I think, makes a very strong argument that 22 can be effective as a daily carry.
My number one priority, and I always tell this to people when I'm teaching self-defense, if I get in a fight with you, I'd rather come out unharmed and do less damage to you than come out harmed and have done exponential damage to you. It's a better situation the least damage I take. And if 22 has been proven in all these studies to be very effective at preventing you from getting killed in those situations. And you can ask anyone who's been shot by a 22, it's not fun. It will make you very deterred from wanting to keep attacking that person. And a lot of the time, and this is another important note, when you get shot, you don't know what you were shot by. You just feel an impact. And then you go into shock or whatever response your body has. You're not sitting there going, I was shot by a 22. I can keep attacking this person. You go, I was shot. This person has a gun. And with a 22, again, they're not just shooting you once. They're going to be able to stay on target because it's literally no recoil. They're just going to be able to sit there and keep shooting you. So if they really do want to take you out, that's an important note. Number 3, this is a very, very important aspect of 22s. So versus 9. 9s have a lot of penetrating power. So if I'm out there, or if I'm in my house with my family and someone breaks in and my family's behind them, or on the street and someone's running at me and there's someone behind them, I don't want to shoot a bullet into a person that's going to pass through them and then hit the person behind them, which has happened many times. I want to shoot a bullet that's going to go inside and start bouncing around their body and doing as much damage as possible. And 22s, little known fact, are ricochet bullets. They go into your body. They don't come out the other side. They start bouncing around off your ribs, off all these little bones, and they start damaging internal organs of the person attacking you, which makes them a very, very effective round because you're not worried about what's behind the person. And again, that's a double note based on the previous one because you're going to be accurate. If I'm out on the street and I take my 9 and I shoot at you and I miss because I'm just not as accurate with it and I hit the person behind you, there's going to be liability for me on that. If I shoot you and the bullet goes through you and kills the person behind you, I'm going to have to live with that. There's going to be liability as well, legally for that, for me. And it's the same for even if you're in a house with drywall and you have stuff going on in your house and God forbid someone comes in and your kids are in a bedroom. I'd much rather be shooting in my house with a 22 where my kids are behind a wall than a 9mm where my kids are behind a wall. And that 9's just going straight through. That's not to say a 22 can't penetrate a wall, but it's not the same at all. It's not. I would be far more confident in that situation to shoot at someone if I knew I was saving my family's life and I was worried about them back there with the 22 than I would with the 9. So this is number 4, and this is a really important one, is sound. So 9mm are very, very loud. And this is really an indoor thing more than an outdoor thing. If you've ever shot a gun indoors and you've removed your ears, your protection, you're really going to notice just how impactful that sound is, how jarring it can be. It can deafen you, but it can also disorient you. 22s are significantly more quiet. So when you're in your house and someone breaks in the middle of the night and you shoot, whether you hit them or not, if you're with your 9, that sound is going to disorient you. If you're with your 22, you'll be able to handle it. You'll also be able to, again, fire more shots because the sound will not drive you crazy. There's a massive difference in the decibels that a 9mm produces because of the amount of gunpowder, the amount of energy it produces, than a 22. So I think guns that are quieter, when you're not in a situation, again, this is a high-stress situation. Every factor matters. Where you're not in a situation where you have earplugs, earmuffs on, and you're shooting at someone, and that sound is vibrating through your entire house. So you feel that vibration. The 22 will outshine in that situation to make it far simpler for you to keep shooting at whoever's attacking. So far we have accuracy, penetration, and sound. And the first one, I believe, was just ease of use in general, and also repetition, how many rounds you can get in. So here's another important thing that I think is very, very important. And this is something that people don't really think about. And it's a size thing, and it depends on how strong you are, but the slides on 9mm are typically harder to pull back. Now, this doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Like you go, okay, well, I'm not too worried. The magazine's out on this firearm. Like I said, it's clear. So it doesn't seem like a big deal right now because right now I'm comfortable. I can pull it back, right? Not a big deal. I can cup it and I can yank it back. If I'm covered in sweat or if I'm cut and the guy's on top of me punching me in the head or stabbing me or whatever that may be, if he's stabbing me, I'm pretty much done at that point. But let's just, whatever situation I am where now I'm covered in blood or I'm covered in sweat, my hands are shaking, everything's going. Again, the easier it is for me to rack, the better. 22s are so much easier to rack. If my hand was covered in blood, and someone this was really interesting. I saw a YouTube video on this. Someone did a test, like his own test, fires guns all the time, and he covered his hand in like a glossy, bloody type of material, and he tried racking a bunch of 9s, and he tried racking a bunch of 22s. Again, the Ruger is not an accurate gun for this because it uses this, which is just a whole other thing. This, I don't care how bloody you are, you're racking that no problem, right? This is super easy to pull back. But he tried it with all types of 22s, and he had a much easier time racking the 22s than he did the 9s. So here we have the 9mm, which is the bullet of choice for most people. And here we have the 22 long rifle, the measly 22 baby long rifle, which everyone says is ineffective. And I want to jump in again to just some basic stats. So yes, this round, in terms of if I were to just shoot you once with it in the exact same spot as this round, is very, very different. This has around 350 to 400 foot-pounds of energy. Please don't quote me on that, but I believe that's around where this sits, and depending on which gun you use. And this round right here has anywhere from a measly 100 to 140. So there's a 2.5 to 4 times, or whatever that is, 3 times difference between the power, the energy that these produce. Now, when you're looking at 1-to-1s, that does make sense that this will have more stopping power, obviously. So let's talk about some of the pros of the 9mm. It has more stopping power. It is a more powerful round. That is the real benefit of a 9. Now, you look at the cons, like I said, recoil, cost of the round, accuracy, being able to stay on target, all those things, the sound. Again, I feel like the 22 outshines it. But again, here we're looking at 1-to-1. This is me hitting you in the shoulder with this and me hitting you in the shoulder with this, one bullet. Now, I don't think that's the reason I have a problem with that comparison that everyone makes is because realistically in a real world situation, yes, I'm hitting you in the shoulder with this. In the time, I'm hitting you 4 to 5 times in the chest with this. And that's the real difference I wanted to make here in this whole video, is that I rather have one of these in the shoulder than 5 of these in the chest that are bouncing around inside my body. And so I don't recommend 22 to everyone. I mean, if you're going out there and I said, you're amazing with your 9, and you're comfortable with your 9, and you're confident that when your life is on the line and you're sweating and your hands are shaking and you might have some blood on you and you're in a state of absolute panic and fear that you could still pull off this round, you've shot enough of it that you're that confident, then by all means use the 9. But the average civilian is going to do better with this. And again, the goal is not to kill the person. The goal is to deter the criminal enough so that they either leave or stop attacking you. Now, if they die in the process, that's their problem. They shouldn't have attacked you. Another reason, this is a final reason here where I think 22s are great, is because when you're starting out shooting, a lot of people are uncomfortable with the recoil. A lot of people are uncomfortable with the feeling it produces. And when you start off with the 22, there's nothing to feel uncomfortable about. So if you haven't shot a gun before and you're like, you know what, I've been thinking about a gun for self-defense, the world's getting a little bit crazy, which it has been, start off with a 22. You might get so comfortable with it that you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to buy, and by the way, 22 firearms are much cheaper. You're going to be in a situation where you actually have something to protect yourself if push comes to shove. And I think that's really important here is, again, if you're comfortable with the round, it will be the best round for you. And this is a very lethal round. Do not underestimate it. I believe it is the round that is used to kill the most people till today. And that might just be because it's, you know, more readily available or whatever the reason, but that doesn't change the statistics. The fact that this is still a very commonly used round in fatal shootings does very much makes the point that it is not a useless, measly baby round. People underestimate this just because of how it looks and how it feels. But when you ask anyone who's been shot by one of these, and again, I've asked people, I know people who've been shot by these, when you ask them, they all say the same thing. I would not continue attacking a person if they continued shooting me. So again, caliber of choice for a lot of people, I think should be the 22. It should be taken back into consideration. Cost effective, no recoil. You get your reps in, easy to shoot. And again, it will not penetrate. It will not go through the body. It will keep damaging that person, less likely to go through walls. So it's a great round, heavily underestimated. I'm a big fan of 22s. So that's it for me. Leave your comments below because I actually want to see what everyone thinks. If you guys want to make fun of me, go ahead. I'm okay with it. But I feel like I put an educated, fair argument forward. And so I'd love to hear what everyone thinks. Thanks so much.